All right, everybody, here we are at NAMM 2017, and we are talking to Chris Lord-Alge, a staggeringly prolific mixing engineer and music maker.
Well, thank you, Dan. It's nice to be here at Reverb.com. I hear a lot of great things about you guys from some friends and a close friend of mine and one of my artists I work with, Rick Nielsen from Cheap Trick. And I missed him yesterday, but glad to be down here today.
And you said you just mixed the last two Cheap Trick records?
I am the 6th member now of Cheap Trick. So, yes, the last two Cheap Trick records I've done, and we've had some fun together.
Your mixing work covers a pretty enormous range of material. I mean, there's rock records, there's country records, there's pop, I mean, everything. How does your approach to mixing that process change depending on what kind of genre you're working with?
You know, I base it on what Rick Nielsen would do, is just put 5 necks on it and turn it up.
Yeah,
no, you know, you have to use a different approach for each one, but generally it's all music and it's all about balance, it's all about style. So it's all about making their record as exciting as possible.
So, you know, one thing you're obviously associated with is the use of compression. How has your kind of style or method changed over the years?
We just use more now.
Exactly.
No, I mean, records now are made, there's so many different ways to use it as a plug-in or whatever. I find that people are really abusing it and really going crazy with it. So there's almost nothing you can hear anymore that's not been compressed.
Right.
So it's really interesting. When I started using it, there was a half a dozen compressors that were great. Now there's 100 plug-in compressors.
Are you using mostly plugins or outboard stuff?
I use both. I try to use the best of both worlds to make it happen. That's my sound.
What are some of your go-to outboard pieces?
1176s. I have 22 of them. So we have a few of those, and that's like our favorites to use.
What is it about the 1176 style compression, though, that's so magical and ubiquitous?
It's like plugging into a guitar amp. It just automatically bends it and makes it exciting sounding.
So you also have a series of Waves plugins you work with, your signature plugins. Can you tell us at all about what the process was like for developing those?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I'm really not a believer in you can copy the analog digitally. So they proved to me that they can take my favorite stuff and make it sound reasonable in a digital domain. So we first started by copying my favorite compressors, you know, making digital versions of that. And then they said, well, do you want to make your own plugin? So I came up with these Signature Series plugins, which gives the guy who wants to mix something really simple to operate. So I tried to make some really user-friendly stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that seems to be kind of the reputation, so makes sense to me. So, you know, I keep on alluding to your breadth of work is pretty amazing, and it'd be really difficult to go through, you know, any particular records or anything like that. But are there any things, you know, looking back that stand out as being kind of like this is the Chris Lord-Alge like approach to mixing? This is the thing that represents what I do the best.
So I want a Cheap Trick to have to have a great sound and have fun with it. So that's one of the bands that I actually just do whatever I want and have fun making a rock record. So the techniques I use are to just make it sound as much like a live band as possible, and nothing subtle about their records. So,
right.
So that's a perfect example of records I mixed there that there's fun involved and excitement, that I'm doing it because I respect the band, not because it's somebody who wanted to hire me.
Are there any other artists you haven't worked with yet you would like to take the same approach with?
Well, I mean, there's some, Led Zeppelin. If they ever make a record that makes a difference. Now, I met Jimmy Page in June, and he's a really cool guy. I said, look, whenever you make music, I want to be involved. Let's make something happen. Now, you're saying, well, Chris, you know, why pick some band that's 40 years old and been broken up for 30 years? Well, there's certain legacies out there I still want to tap into. There's a lot of new bands I want to work with, obviously. But I still have some of my favorites I grew up with that I want to make sure I can touch that band.
Can you tell us about any new technologies or processes or anything maybe you might see here at NAMM you're excited to try out or you've been working with in recent years?
Well, I think, you know, what we're doing is we're just making music more available on more formats, touch screens, smaller controllers, and we're making it more available to the user. And what I'm learning about what you guys do at Reverb.com is you're creating a niche for musicians to sell gear, to buy gear, and to be confident that the gear that they purchased that's vintage is exactly what it's supposed to be. And the commission that you take is really fair, and how you approach it is really fair, because there's other mediums out there on how to buy used equipment, but as we all know, if you want to plunk down thousands of dollars for a great old guitar, it's nerve-wracking to find the right one and know where you're getting it from. So, and I'm glad to be part of the Reverb team here.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. I mean, that's really what it's all about. And, you know, it's about, like you just said, helping people find the tools they need. You don't need a studio. I mean, it's nice to have it, but you don't need to have the, you know, 221176s to make something sound pretty decent,
Exactly.
right?
So I recommend for your audience is that go up on reverb.com and go find your vintage guitar. Go find someone's used studio setup that you can start on. Go pick up where someone else left off on their equipment and take it and make a new home revision from something that someone else used.